Hi everybody, Chris Stokes from Custom Fitness Personal Training Studio, and today we're talking about your posture, the missing element. The missing element of what? Well, a lot of times you go through the hard work, you go through the motions, you do all the workouts, you eat just right, you do all these things and you end up losing weight but you still don't look right? Or you've lost a little bit of weight but nobody's noticed. What is the problem, right? What's wrong with those people? So sometimes it's the fact that we haven't learned how to hold our body in the right way in order to make those results shine through. And I will tell you that I've had people who haven't lost anything at times, but yet they stand different and wear clothes that fit, and people start to notice all sorts of crazy things. There are certain times during your body transformation where you may not be losing as much weight, but you are definitely dropping body fat and inches, but we keep the old clothes and we stand differently, people can't notice. So you start to change those two things and people take notice. It's an amazing transformation and it only takes a few seconds, but it's a matter of practice. So the more that you practice it, the more subconscious it becomes, the more likely you are to be doing it in the first place and not just waiting for somebody to walk by to stand up straight, right? If you were, in the generation that I grew up in, a lot of times it was the shoulders back and down and lift the chest and suck in the stomach and those kinds of things. So there's a lot to this that really isn't quite the hype that it used to be, okay? So first of all, why would we want to work on our posture? Well, outside of the vanity of being able to look better, there's also the joint discomfort. So as you work on your posture, you're actually going to alleviate some of that joint discomfort because you're decompressing some of those joints that you've been pressing down on so hard. As you stand here, the body is just not as efficient. When you're not as efficient, you're going to not have as much energy. So by building your posture, you're going to build your energy. So just a couple of different things other than the fact that you're going to look a little bit smaller, you're going to feel a little bit better, things are going to be moving along for you. All right, so then what exactly are we working on with posture? Well, we're working on decompressing, so we want to get the body into a more efficient stance to where we're supporting ourselves better. Best example I can think of is like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? So you've got this leaning column, and if you were to put a weight on top of that, the whole thing would come crashing down. Obviously, it'd have to be the right weight, right? But let's take, for instance, somebody who stands with a slight lean. If you go and add weights to that, it's not going to benefit their body. So we've got to build that posture so that our body will be auto-corrected into the best and most efficient stance, which actually makes you stronger. So therefore you can lift weights differently or move your body differently and be able to accommodate the changes and challenges that are coming at you all the time as you're walking, say, across a parking lot. You don't want to roll your ankle, you don't want to step in that hole, you don't want to step too close to that car. As you hold your body correctly, your body can adjust quicker to those things because it's in a more efficient position. So it can use its muscles better, can use the structure of the body better, and everything works better. So how the heck do we do this? Well, we start at the floor. Everything starts from the ground up. It's the only part of you that's touching the ground all the time, right? So it starts at the floor. If you just pull your shoulders back, and believe you me, I've had plenty of older gentlemen who walk with a hump here, and you tell them to stand up straight, and this is what they do. They didn't change their position. All they did was pull their shoulders back because, again, in certain generations, it was all about the shoulders. Now, posture actually begins at the floor. So if you start with your feet, and I'm going to turn to the side so you can see me a little bit. If you start with the feet, what we're trying to do is there's a triad, if you will, a triangle of pressure between the big toe joint, the little toe joint, and your heel. So we're not talking about the toe itself, but the bone joint right underneath, okay? So we're trying to find equal weight front to back, side to side through those feet. And as we find that, we rest right down the middle of our arches. Our feet are about hip width apart, and remember that hip width is right underneath your hip bones here. If you put your hands on your hip bones, it goes straight down from there. It's not the fleshy part out here, so your hips actually are not as wide as you thought. Self-esteem boost for the day. So we want to make sure that everything is lined up there. We've got that equal weight, and when you walk like this, as you practice, start out standing first, but as you begin to get better at it, then you can walk with it. And we want to have the weight going down about the second and third toes as you're walking forward, okay? Now, as you stand here like this and you begin to just gently soften the knees, they're not locked back and they're not bent, they're just right in between, just nice and soft, then you should feel a little more supported, a little more strength in that stance. That if somebody were to come up and push on you right now, you might not teeter as far, okay? So we come up, we have those soft knees. Now the next part's a little challenging. We do not want to tuck the pelvis under, and we do not want to tuck the pelvis back. What we want to do is we want to think about the tailbone dropping straight down towards the floor so that our pelvis, if it were a bucket of water, would come into a nice neutral position and hold that water. Nothing would spill out the front, nothing would spill out the back, okay? So we're in this nice neutral position here. Now, we've talked on a different video about our transverse abs, so we want to really focus on that part next. That 80% that we've talked about before, we want to find that engagement. So think about coughing or sneezing. Don't think suck in. Think cough or sneeze, pull down into your ribs, into your hips, belly button pulls back into your spine. So it's like you're squeezing as tight as you can to get those jeans on, right? So you're squeezing, pulling in, and you get those jeans on. You can feel the muscles tensing. So if you just suck in, you don't really feel the muscles tensing, but if you pull down, you will, okay? So we've got our feet, our knees, our hips. We want our stomach in nice and tight, and then we're coming up to the shoulders next. We're gonna roll the shoulders back and down, and as we do, it may change your hand position, depending on where you normally stand with your hands. So shoulders are back and down, they're open to the front, and we're gonna make sure that our neck is an extension off of our spine. So if it's pulled forward here, we're trying to put our ears right on top of our shoulders. We're gonna press back just a little bit. You may feel really goofy doing this, but if you look in the mirror with it, you actually don't look that bad, okay? So we're gonna pull the ears back, then we're gonna take our gaze and we're gonna drop it down just about an inch, and what that's gonna do is lower our chin. If we think lower our chin, we're gonna end up here, but if we just drop our eyes down about an inch, we'll be able to get in the right position. Now there were a couple of things that we missed on here, and that's just because I wanted to go through the big parts first. So practice holding this for a few seconds, then relax. Remember that your arms can relax. They have nothing to do with the shoulders being back or the hips being in position. But what I do want you to check real quick is your rib cage. So if you're out here at the front with the ribs, we would need to pull them back right on top of our hips. So everything's stacked, right? Ankles on top of feet, knees on top of ankles, hips on top of knees, ribs on top of hips, shoulders on top of ribs. See how that all works? Okay, so it's all stacked up nice and tall here. So then what you want to do is you want to relax out, kind of take a few steps, and then come back and find that great posture again. Stack it up one by one from the floor, find that posture again, hold it about 30 to 45 seconds. So what was the part that we didn't talk about? We didn't talk about our ankles, and that's because it's kind of complicated. So I want to go through the easy stuff first. So with our ankles, what happens a lot of times, and you may notice this for yourself, you either stand to the inside or the outside, or you may lean to one side or lean to the other. And what that does is it causes pressure on different parts of the feet. Have you ever noticed that you have on the big toe joint that you've got a larger bone than the other? Or maybe even on the little toe joint that there's a larger bone than the other? Or maybe they're both larger and the inside smaller? It's wherever you put the most pressure on your feet. So bone is going to build where pressure is allowed. So the more consistent times that you have pressure on the outside of your foot, the more the body's going to build bone there to make a straight line so that you have a line of support. So again, that you're not leaning in this inefficient manner. Your body's amazing, so it starts to build this ability to put bone on where it needs to accommodate the way that you're walking or moving or sitting all day long. So what we're going to do is we're going to find that triad again, that triangle of pressure underneath our feet, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our feet are not rolling in. Okay, so as you have that equal pressure, it's really easy to kind of pull in, but we want to make sure that we're not rolling in. So what we do is, all we do is move the ankle. Now that's really tricky again because we want to keep the big toe on the floor. So what people tend to do is lift the big toe, leave the big toe on the floor, just roll the ankle on top of your feet. Make sure that you open that up so that the ankles are directly on top of the feet, they're not rolling in. And maybe that's all you practice for a few days. Then start to build through the rest of the body. The more often you can practice this stance, the better you'll get at it. It'll become subconscious over time, but it does take practice. Once a week, even 10 times a week is not enough. So think about like 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Take a few moments, work on your posture. Maybe it's whenever you answer a phone call, you stand up and work on your posture while you're talking. Or maybe it's whenever you're getting ready to get in the shower and you stand up and work on your posture. Find a trigger of some sort that makes sense to you and start using that. Now remember that just because you're not standing all day does not mean that you can't take a break to work on it. Even if you can't stand up, you can still work posture from the hips to the head, right? So if your feet are on the ground sitting in a chair, make sure your feet are about hip width apart, feet are flat. Go through the posture from the hips up and make sure that you're working on that side so that you can still keep it fresh in your brain. This is just something that the more repetition you get, the better you're going to get at it. If you would like our help on making your body move more efficiently with less pain, less aching, just less general discomfort, we would love to help you out. Feel free to give us a call, 806-322-3188, and we'll be happy to set up that consultation for you. And talk to you soon.